Thank you. Now in 2024, are there other biological structures that are part of human cognition that you think are worth exploring in a similar way or that you're interested in anyway?
So the way I'd answer this question is that if you are, or someone is a person who has a specific insight about, hey, we are all being extremely silly because clearly the brain does something and we are not, and that's something that can be done, they should pursue it. I personally don't. Well, depends on the level of abstraction you're looking at. Maybe I'll answer it this way. Like, there's been a lot of desire to make biologically inspired AI. And you could argue on some level that biologically inspired AI is incredibly successful, which is all of deep learning is biologically inspired AI. But on the other hand, the biological inspiration was very, very, very modest. It's like, let's use neurons. This is the full extent of the biological inspiration. Let's use neurons. And more detailed biological inspiration has been very hard to come by. But I wouldn't rule it out. I think if someone has a special insight, they might be able to see something, and that would be useful.
I have a question for you about sort of autocorrect. So here's the question. You mentioned reasoning as being one of the core aspects of maybe the modeling in the future and maybe a differentiator. What we saw in some of the poster sessions is that hallucinations in today's models, the way we're analyzing, I mean, maybe you correct me, you're the expert on this, but the way we're analyzing whether a model is hallucinating today because we know of the dangers of models not being able to reason, that we're using a statistical analysis, let's say some amount of standard deviations or whatever away from the mean. In the future, do you think that a model given reasoning will be able to correct itself, sort of auto-correct itself, and that will be a core feature of future models so that there won't be as many hallucinations because the model will recognize when, maybe that's too esoteric of a question, but the model will be able to reason and understand when a hallucination is occurring? Does the question make sense?
Yes, and the answer is also yes. I think what you described is extremely highly plausible. I mean, you should check. I mean, I wouldn't rule out that it might already be happening with some of the, early reasoning models of today. I don't know, but longer term, why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of like Microsoft Word, like autocorrect. It's a core feature.
Yeah, I think calling it autocorrect is really doing a disservice. I think when you say autocorrect, you evoke like. It's far grander than autocorrect, but this point aside, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Ilya. I loved the ending, mysteriously leaving out, do they replace us or are they, superior? Do they need rights? It's a new species of Homo sapien spawned intelligence. So maybe they need, I think the RL guy they think that we need rights for these things. I have an unrelated question to that. How do you create the right incentive mechanisms for humanity to actually create it in a way that gives it the freedoms that we have as Homo sapiens?
I feel like this, in some sense, those are the kind of questions that people should be reflecting on more. But to your question about what incentive structure should we create, I don't feel that I know. I don't feel confident answering questions like this because it's like you're talking about creating some kind of a top-down structure, government thing, I don't know.
It could be a cryptocurrency, too.
Yeah. I mean...
There's BitTensor, there's things.
I don't feel like I am the right person to comment on cryptocurrency. But there is a chance, by the way, what you're describing will happen that indeed we will have, in some sense, it's not a bad end result if you have AIs and all they want is to coexist with us and also just to have rights. Maybe that will be fine. But I don't know. I mean, I think things are so incredibly unpredictable. I hesitate to comment, but I encourage the speculation.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the talk. It's really awesome.
Hi, Ilya. Thank you for the great talk. My name is Shalev Lifshitz from University of Toronto, working with Sheila. Thanks for all the work you've done. I wanted to ask, do you think LLMs generalize multi-hop reasoning out of distribution?
So, okay, the question assumes that the answer is yes or no, but the question should not be answered with yes or no. Because what does it mean out of distribution generalization? What does it mean? What does it mean in distribution? And what does it mean out of distribution? Because it's a test of time talk, I'll say that long, long ago, before people were using deep learning, they were using things like string matching, n-grams. For machine translation, people were using statistical phrase tables. Can you imagine? They had tens of thousands of code of complexity, which was, I mean, it was truly unfathomable. And back then, generalization meant, is it literally not as the same phrasing as in the data set? Now we may say, well, sure, my model achieves this high score on, I don't know, math competitions, but maybe some discussion in some forum on the internet was about the same ideas, and therefore it's memorized. Well, okay, you could say maybe it's in distribution, maybe it's memorization, but I also think that our standards for what counts as generalization have increased really quite substantially, dramatically, unimaginably, if you keep track. And so I think the answer is, to some degree, probably not as well as human beings. I think it is true that human beings generalize much better. But at the same time, they definitely generalize out of distribution to some degree. I hope it's a useful tautological answer.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for this session. I have a feeling we could go on for the next 6 hours. But thank you so much, Ilya, for the talk.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.